During an appearance with Lawrence O'Donnell on The Last Word a few days ago, a caller asked Joe Biden a very interesting and ironically appropriate question. Would you be willing to commit to the idea that no one is above the law? Because the question had framed in context of Gerald Ford's pardon of Richard Nixon, and Biden was being asked if he would pardon President Trump after being elected, without really thinking, he jumped at the opportunity to boldly proclaim that no one is above the law and said yes.
We hold these truths to be self-evident. All men and women created by you know the thing.
For once in his life, Biden had blurted out an instinctive back to haunt him. During his very last days as vice president, Biden unmasked General Michael Flynn. And by a very strange coincidence, it happened to be the very same day Flynn's name was leaked to the media. In the very unlikely event Biden had some kind of legitimate reason for unmasking Flynn at the time, it is improbable that he would remember what the reason might have been more than 3 years later, when he can't even remember where he's at half the time. Leaking Flynn's name is a felony, punishable up to 10 years in prison. The moral of the story, Sloppy Joe, is be careful what you wish for, because you might just get it. The United States is a republic formed by a democratic vote, not a monarchy. We elect a president, not a king. Politicians are not royalty. The problem with the question was that it began with an assumption that President Trump committed some sort of crime that would require a pardon to avoid prison. However, after a Mueller investigation that dragged on for 2 years plus without revealing any crimes by Trump, and an absurd impeachment by the House based on political mudsling by the Democrats using the Steele dossier, which they bought and paid for, by the way, but not a conviction there. The American people now know that Trump isn't guilty of anything. Nixon never got that far in the process. He decided to resign before impeachment to avoid a trial. The caller should have asked Joe Biden a different question. When President Trump is reelected in November, do you think there's a snowball's chance in hell that he might pardon you, Mr. Biden? For decades, but definitely for the last 3 years, the American people have been led to believe by the Democratic Party, the media, and corrupt holdovers from the Obama administration that President Trump is a criminal and under the control of Russia and Vladimir Putin. The reality was the members of the Obama administration and the Democratic Party colluded with a former British intelligence agent and some drunk Russians to concoct a purely fantasy about Donald J. Trump that they stupidly used as an excuse to then spy on his campaign.
There's a guy named Kleinsmith who eventually alters an email from the CIA.
Other than Kleinsmith, you have James Clapper, James Comey, Andrew McCabe, Rod Rosenstein, Peter Strzok, Susan Rice, Lisa Page, Samantha Power, plus many, and a number of other Obama administration officials, including Big Ears himself, must be given a fair trial and punished to the full extent of the law, which should include lengthy prison sentences. It's hard to believe this much time has passed already, but I used that very term over a year and a half, almost 2 years ago, when I predicted that the brewing scandal would be worse than Watergate ever even could have imagined. But even knowing all that I knew back then, I had no idea some of the damning evidence that would come to light. Dwell on the thought for a moment. Barack Obama told former Deputy Attorney General Sally Yates details about Flynn's phone call with Sergei Kislyak during a meeting at the White House, not vice versa. He knew more about the spying on Flynn than his own Deputy Attorney General. As a Private Hudson, Bill Paxton famously said in the movie Aliens, "It's game over, man." Obama cannot plead ignorance or claim that he only learned about this political spying taking place within his own administration after reading about it in the New York Times or the WalPo or some MSNBC CNN Don Lemon show. He knew and must have approved it, since he didn't order the spying on Flynn and Trump or stop it, even if he wasn't the mastermind who originally dreamed up this mutinous plot. And like I said over a year and a half ago, and even again a couple months ago, and tons of times in between, we'll see who the players are. We all don't need to fight over each other and amongst one another and tell us each other how we're all wrong or I'm wrong. It's hard to figure out. The reason I will say this is like this: if Barr is in the way and has been brought back into this to do the right thing, and he doesn't, then we know he goes down as well. If he does the right thing, then there's nothing to complain about. Some of these crimes have been divvied up behind the scenes. Some will go to military tribunals and others will be in the civilian sector. I know people are confused, but we've had since after 9/11 the Patriot Act, for example. And there's certain laws put in there because of the war on terror. And if you're deemed a terrorist, well, maybe some of these people within the federal government have been deemed terrorist, and these laws will be used against them. I'd advise you to look into the law of armed conflict. And since we've been at war and certain people aiding and abetting the enemy, you will go down and there will be different charges brought. That's why it's all confusing, and it leaves a normal person just boggled trying to figure it all out. But that's why we're here, and we're trying to get through this together. The reason it is vitally important for the future of our government that the criminals in the Obidengate scandal are prosecuted and possibly executed or given life terms can be summed up in a single name: former Republican Senator Ted Stevens. Similar to what has been happening to General Flynn. In 2008, a superior criminal prosecution of Stevens flipped control of the Senate and gave control of both houses to the Democrats, just in time for the passage of Obamacare. Nothing happened to the prosecutors beyond a scolding by the presiding judge, Emmett Sullivan. Yes, that's right. It's the same judge now, refusing to dismiss the charges against Michael Flynn. Stevens' defense attorney, Brendan Sullivan, said about the federal prosecutors involved, "This was not about mistakes. This was not about negligence. This is not about incompetence. This was about intentional wrongdoing." Judge Sullivan was reportedly furious and named a special prosecutor to investigate whether the government lawyers involved should be punished, saying he'd never seen misconduct and mishandling like that from the Justice Department during his 25 years on the bench. This begs the question, exactly what in the hell does Sullivan think he's been seeing in the Michael Flynn case? Open your eyes. We're not going to stand for these dirty, on-the-take judges like Emmett Sullivan. Throw you out on your ass. Leave you out in the streets. See how you survive. Everybody knows your face, what you've done. Pull your shit together. We are cleaning house, and every single dirty scumbag that wasn't playing a role, which we'll find out soon. I know some people are highly upset at all the people, and you can pinpoint exactly what it is that isn't the right thing. We will soon see the misconduct and mishandling on the biggest scale that we've ever seen. Mark my word, these people will be dealt with accordingly and swiftly. Through law and order, the wheels of justice move slow, but when they move, you better watch out. Again, I am Michael. This is the Patriot Hour. God bless, Godspeed to each and every one of you. Where we go one, we go all.
And a lot of people were in on it, and they got caught, and they got caught, and they got caught. Yeah!
1943, the following directive was issued from party headquarters to all communists in the United States. It read, "When certain obstructionists become too irritating, label them after suitable build-ups as fascist or Nazi or anti-Semitic, and use the prestige of anti-fascist and tolerance organizations to discredit them. In the public mind, constantly associate those who oppose us with those names which already have a bad smell. The association will, after enough repetition, become fact in the public mind."